Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Frasco. This is Business Builders. Thank you for joining me. This is episode 5, Strategic Growth in an Uncertain Economy. As a principal of a managing consulting practice that focuses on strategy and change, and then COACT now for over 20 years, I've had the opportunity to work with scores of business owners who are in the business-to-business space. And it doesn't happen very often, but periodically I'll hear, and have the last few years, we've got more business than we can handle. The last thing I need right now is more revenue. I smile when I hear this, and I guess privately grimace a little bit when I hear this kind of a statement from a business leader. I have been through a number of economic cycles over the years, good and some not so good. If they were predictable and consistent in their frequencies, it would be a little bit easier, but of course they're not. And that is really the core subject matter of this presentation, and thinking about when is the best time to think about strategic growth. The best time to think about strategic growth is when you don't need to. What I mean by that is that when you get to a spot where you're really thinking about, we need to get more revenue, we need to diversify our revenue streams, more than likely, it's a little late. Most B2B sales are 6, 12, 18 months in gestation, meaning the time from when you might introduce yourself to a prospect to when you might actually be enjoying revenue from that prospect could be sometimes even further than 12 or 18 months. Many sales in the B2B market are very programmatic and tend to have longer gestation than, for instance, consumer sales. Now, I don't want this to become a macroeconomics 101 session, but I do want to cover a couple of items that will help inform us on our topic. The first item I'd have us think about is real GDP. GDP, gross domestic product, the value of all products and services sold in the United States. Real GDP is the gross domestic product adjusted for inflation. The second is the federal funds effective rate. This federal funds effective rate is set by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, and it is effectively the rate that banks borrow and loan money at. So as they exchange money between the banks, the federal funds effective rate is the rate at which that exchange takes place. Since 1955, we've had 10 recessions. 7 of those recessions have been preceded by periods of extraordinary growth. Our average GDP growth per quarter over 200 quarters since 1955 is 3%. So 7 times out of 10, our GDP growth exceeded 6%, more than double the average in those periods just before the recession. As those economies heated up, all 7 of those periods were matched by a federal funds rate of greater than 5%. Our average federal funds rate since 2000 has been 1.7. So a federal funds rate at 5% is nearly 3 times that average level since 2000. The average federal funds rate for 2020 and 2021 was less than 1/4 of 1%, 0.23. In 2022, it was 1.68, and now we are at 5%. Now, I'm not smart enough or bold enough to predict that we're entering into a recession soon, but the data is very interesting. Within the last 2 years, we've experienced 6.1% GDP growth. The current federal funds rate is at 5%. Both of those are hovering in extraordinary territory. So summarizing our progress, there are 2 concepts that have been presented. One is this gestation of sale, the period of time that it takes from the time you make an introduction to a high-value target to the time when you enjoy new revenue from that target, 6, 12, 18, 24 months. The other is this concept of certain and uncertain economies. I guess I would propose, although the data is somewhat compelling, that the only thing certain about the economy is its uncertainty. So therefore, do we ever really have enough revenue that we don't want to pay attention to our strategic growth processes and structures? So I'd like you to think about a grid, if you will, a 4-quad grid. products and services on one axis, and markets and customers on another axis. Products and services existing, products and services new. Markets, customers existing, markets and customers new. So let's talk about strategic growth or strategic thinking in a growing economy, an economy where demand is outstripping supply. What I like to think about during these periods of time is a serious evaluation of my customer portfolio. We all can sort of categorize our customers A, Bs, and Cs based on various criteria, whether it's margin, strategic fit, hassle factor, payment of bills, whatever it might be. But we have this A, B, C structure in our head, looking at our current market, our current customers. I always say during growth economies, because I'll hear often that they don't have the capacity to take on more revenue, I'll say, let's take some time with Cs and let's find those Cs that maybe we need to prune. Maybe we need to fire them as customers. If not so bold as to do that, maybe it's raise their prices and have them evaluate the value that you're bringing to their business. So ABC portfolio, get those Cs out of your system or at least make more money working with the Cs. That is a really important, I think, framework in a growth economy. Another is to think about maybe taking the products and services that you have today, developing add-ons or additions or evolve your products and services into new areas, and applying those new developments on products and services into existing customers and existing markets. In a growth economy, it's a great time to invest in product service extension. Another thing during a growth economy to think about is taking your existing products and services and extending into new markets, new customer types. It's a little bit harder, but it will be slower, but that's okay in a growth economy. You're making those investments, you're geographically expanding, or you're expanding in different industries. The last, and if you have the asset base to do it, would be to move into some advanced development where new products, new services, new markets, new customers. I call this Summit A. It's startup, merger, acquisition. But if you're in the position in a growth economy to make some investments, this might be a time for you to really hop markets, hop products and services, get into new areas that you haven't experienced in the past. It's not a common strategy, but it is one that's available to you during growth economies. In an economy that isn't growing, one where demand has diminished and there's more supply than there is demand, I'm working with business leaders to have their business development and marketing become a competitive advantage. I really want that whole marketing and business development structure to become more effective, more efficient, better than any one of my competitors in the marketplace. I want to use business development and marketing as a weapon in the marketplace so that everywhere my competitors go to try to find new market share in a down economy, my group is there and we're talking about solutions and we're talking about serving that customer. So it's really never a good time to save money on business development and marketing. I think anytime you diminish your focus or begin to divest in strategic outreach functions, you're really at risk to lose market share. You're really at risk to, with the gestation of sale, find yourself with a gap of 6, 12, and 18 months, which can be very painful and concerning as you work hard to close the gap that was created due to poor decision-making and bad timing. So, when is the best time to think about strategic growth? When you don't need to. I hope this was useful. Thank you for tuning in and downloading Business Builders. If you have ideas for future podcasts or have comments, please email me at mark@businessbuilders.pro. Until next time, this is Mark Frasco reminding you, strategic growth is a daily discipline, not an as-needed activity.